there's a couple different ways to think about near-term solutions that can provide some immediate relief. On the technological side, you listed a couple of them. I describe grid enhancing technologies, or GETs, as the ibuprofen for the grid, in the sense that it can provide some immediate near term cost relief in that it gets more juice out of our existing grid. It can accommodate some of and meet some of this rising demand on a near term basis. Those very customers want grid enhancing technologies. It's beneficial for consumers. It's an OPEX oriented solution. And so that's why, in part, the notion that utilities are preferential towards capital investments, that does come into play. But I think there's a near term dynamic where if we want some immediate relief on bills, this is one solution. You mentioned a couple others: virtual power plants, distributed energy resources. Texas, obviously, actually in many ways leading the country in those fronts, with still opportunities to further accelerate. And we also touched on energy efficiency. Why are we not taking advantage of all of the available electrons that we have on our grid? You've had Tyler Norris on your podcast. He's had obviously an incredible great paper with some of the other colleagues at Duke University, where ERCOT's load factor is around 53%. What that means is that there's an opportunity for more juice for us to squeeze from the existing grid, and let's do that. And then on the policy front, the two that you mentioned in particular, distribution system planning and rate design reform, are two of the ones that we would certainly champion and espouse as sort of things that states should at minimum be looking at, if not implementing, if it's right for the regulatory system in that particular state. And that's only going to get more and more important, especially around the question of distribution capex. Transmission planning is something that in general also is highly relevant in terms of taming some of the transmission costs and making sure that consumers are benefiting from new transmission investments at a national level. Some of the things that we're talking about here are FERC Order 1920, which certainly doesn't apply in this context. But there are ways for us to just continuously improve transmission planning, interconnection. And this is also an opportunity, maybe, for AI and positive AI use cases for the grid to come into play to just speed up some of these processes as well, in terms of getting more electrons on the grid to accommodate more load, but doing so in a way that actually, again, puts downward pressure on rates, which we are very far from in practice right now.